The first thing the samurai notices is the smells, a mixture of sweat, iron, and something unfamiliar. Western armor doesn't breathe like lacquered leather. It clanks. It announces itself with every step. Sakamoto Tadanori, a 23-year-old samurai of the Shimazu clan, presses his back against a cedar trunk and listens to the forest talk. He has never seen a European knight before today. None of his men have. They have only heard stories. Iron demons, pale ghosts, men who cannot be cut. The rumors traveled faster than any ship from Nagasaki harbor. Now, in the winter of 1593, on a hillside overlooking the trade port of Hirado, the rumors have become flesh and steel. The knight emerges from the tree line, 6 feet of Italian plate armor, a rapier hanging at his hip, a wheel-lock pistol tucked into his belt. His name is Carlo Spinola. He is not here to fight. He is a Jesuit missionary escorting Portuguese merchants. But the 20 Spanish tercios behind him, sweating in the Japanese humidity, are very much here to fight. What happens next is not what either man expected. Tadanori steps into the clearing. His katana stays sheathed. He raises one hand, palm open. Spinola halts his men with a gesture. For a long moment, the only sound is water dripping from cedar leaves. 2 warriors, 2 worlds. No common language except the one they are about to create. This is the story of what happened when the samurai sword met European steel. Not the movie version, not the internet debate version, the real version, told through the bodies that carried the blades, the armor that stopped them, and the battlefield autopsies that revealed what actually kills a man in medieval combat. Bodies. A samurai in the year 1300 and a European knight in the year 1300 have almost nothing in common as human beings, and that matters more than their weapons. The samurai begins his training at age 7. By 14, he has killed, not animals, men, live blades from childhood. His body is lean. Rice, fish, vegetables. Average height, 5'3". Average weight, 130 pounds. He bathes daily. His teeth are blackened with ohaguro, a sign of status. His top knot is oiled and precise. He can recite poetry. He can also disembowel a man in under 2 seconds with a short blade the length of your forearm. The European knight begins training at 7 as a page, but he doesn't touch a real sword until 14. His body is built on meat, bread, ale. Average height, 5'8". Average weight, 170 pounds. He bathes monthly, if he's clean. His teeth rot visibly by 30. He cannot read. He prays in Latin he doesn't understand. He has been in armor since age 10, carrying 40 to 60 pounds of steel on his frame. His neck is thick from wearing a helmet. His shoulders slope forward from a lifetime of shields. The samurai fights for his lord, his honor, his name. Death is not the worst outcome. Shame is. The knight fights for his lord, his god, and the promise of salvation. Death in battle absolves sin. This is not a metaphor. It is canon law. When these 2 men face each other, they bring entirely different understandings of what the next 60 seconds mean. Blades. A katana is not a sword. It is a razor that happens to be sword length, forged from Tamahagan steel. Iron sand smelted in a clay furnace for 3 days and nights. The katana blade is folded up to 16 times. Each fold removes impurities. Each fold creates thousands of layers. The result is a blade with a soft, flexible spine and a hard, razor-sharp edge. Differential heat treatment creates the hamon, the wavy line along the blade that is both beautiful and functional. The edge hardness reaches 60 on the Rockwell scale. A modern kitchen knife is 58. A samurai sharpens his katana with water stones. The process takes hours. The result can cut through 3 condemned prisoners, stacked horizontally. A historical testing method called tamashigiri that was documented as late as the 1800s. But this blade has a vulnerability. It is single-edged and curved. It cuts magnificently on the draw. It slices soft targets. It is not designed to thrust through steel plate. A European longsword weighs about 3 pounds, roughly the same as a katana, but it is straight, double-edged, and balanced for both cut and thrust. The cross guard protects the hands. The pommel is a weapon in itself. The blade geometry shifts along its length, wider near the hilt for parrying, narrower near the tip for thrusting. It is an evolution of 2,000 years of European warfare, designed to defeat armor, shields, and other swords. Here's what the internet debates rarely acknowledge. These two swords were never designed to fight each other. They were designed to solve completely different problems. Armor. Samurai armor, Ō-yoroi, is a masterpiece of organic engineering. Lacquered iron and leather scales laced together with silk cord. It weighs about 60 pounds. It covers the torso, shoulders, and thighs. The helmet, kabuto, is a riveted dome with a neck guard that flares outward. The face is protected by a mempo mask, often shaped into a demonic snarl. This armor is optimized for mounted archery. The samurai's primary weapon for centuries was not the katana. It was the yumi, the asymmetrical longbow, 7 feet tall, fired from horseback. The armor's boxy shape deflects arrows. The loose silk lacing catches blades and slows them. It is flexible, repairable, and terrifying to look at. European plate armor, a full Milanese harness from 1450, weighs about 55 pounds. It is less than the samurai's armor, distributed across the entire body. Every plate is worked to deflect blows outward. The curved surfaces make arrows and blades skid rather than penetrate. The helmet, a visored bassinet or armet, leaves no flesh exposed. The gauntlets articulate at every finger joint. The sabatons cover the feet. This armor is optimized for one thing: surviving the combined arms of a European battlefield. Longbows at range, polearms at medium distance, swords and daggers in the clinch. A knight in full harness is not a slow, clumsy turtle. He can run, jump, roll, and climb. Modern reenactors in accurate plate armor can do cartwheels. The critical difference: European armor covers everything. Samurai armor leaves gaps at the armpits, the inner thighs, the face beneath the raised visor. These gaps exist for a reason: mobility for archery, but they create vulnerabilities that European combat doctrine specifically targeted. Non schnur, fanashilus. Unes. This is where battlefield archaeology tells the real story. The mass graves at Towton, the skeletons from Wisby, the forensic analysis of medieval combat fatalities. When archaeologists examine skeletons from European battlefields between 1300 and 1500, a pattern emerges. The majority of fatal wounds are to the head and legs, not the torso. Plate armor worked. Blades rarely penetrated the chest. Instead, combatants were struck down by blows to the unprotected back of the leg, then finished with a dagger through the visor or the armpit. When archaeologists examine skeletons from Japanese battlefields of the same period, the wound patterns differ. More torso wounds, more slashing trauma. The gaps in Ō-yoroi, those armpits, those inner thighs, show up in the bone record. A katana strike to an unarmored torso is catastrophic. The curved blade pulls through flesh on the draw cut, creating wounds that are long, deep, and rapidly fatal from blood loss. A longsword strike to the same target is also devastating, but the straight blade's cutting mechanics differ. It cleaves, the katana slices, the outcome is the same: a dead man on the ground. But against armor, the katana's edge geometry, optimized for slicing soft tissue, struggles against hardened steel plate. Hit a Milanese breastplate with a katana and the edge chips or rolls. The curve works against thrusting. The single edge limits follow-up angles. The longsword, by contrast, can thrust with both hands behind the point, driving the narrow tip through mail, through visor slits, through the gaps at joints. Half-swording, gripping the blade itself with the left hand for precision, turns the sword into a short spear. The crossguard becomes a hook, the pommel becomes a mace. European knights trained to fight in armor against armor. The long sword was designed precisely for this problem. Encounter. But none of this theory mattered in Hirado in 1593, because Tadanori and Spinola did not fight. The Portuguese merchants had brought something more valuable than soldiers: arquebuses, matchlock firearms that the Japanese had already encountered, already copied, already improved. By 1593, Japan was manufacturing more firearms than any European nation. The samurai had adapted. Some of Tadanori's men carried Tanagashima, Japanese matchlocks named after the island where the Portuguese first landed 50 years earlier. The idea of a pure samurai sword culture meeting a pure knight culture is a fantasy. By the time these two warrior traditions could have meaningfully clashed, gunpowder had already rewritten the rules. What actually happened at Hirado was stranger and more interesting. Spinola and the Shimazu clan established trade. Jesuit missionaries and samurai lords sat in the same rooms. They examined each other's weapons. They tested them. Portuguese accounts describe samurai cutting through iron helmets with a single strike. Japanese accounts describe the sheer weight and momentum of a European charge. Mutual respect developed, not from combat, but from recognition. The real collision between samurai and European combat doctrine happened not in Japan, but in the Philippines, where Japanese mercenaries fought Spanish tercios in the 1580s, and there, the result was predictable. Firearms and pike formations defeated individual sword skill. The katana was never a battlefield primary weapon. By this period, it was a sidearm, a backup to the bow, the spear, the gun, just as the knight's longsword was a sidearm to the lance and the poleaxe. Bodies speak. In the end, the question, who would win, misunderstands what both warrior traditions actually were. The samurai was not a sword-wielding duelist seeking one-on-one combat. He was a mounted archer, then a mounted lance-wielder, then a firearm-equipped officer commanding a shigaru foot soldiers. The katana was his soul, literally in Shinto belief, but it was not his primary tool of war. The European knight was not a lone warrior in shining steel. He was the commanding element of a combined arms system. Lance, mounted charge, dismounted poleaxe, supported by archers, crossbowmen, and eventually gunners. The longsword was a sidearm, a backup, a tool for armored grappling. The myth of the duel, one samurai, one knight, one empty field, is a Hollywood invention. Real medieval combat was never fair, never solo, never symmetrical. It was about who brought the better system. The samurai and the knight had more in common than either would have admitted. Both were hereditary warrior elites in feudal societies. Both were bound by codes of honor that glorified death in service. Both were made obsolete by the same technology, massed gunpowder infantry, within a century of each other. Both were romanticized beyond recognition by the cultures that replaced them. Tadanori died in 1612, not in battle, but of old age, in a Japan that was closing its borders to the outside world. Spinola was beatified by the Catholic Church in 1867, 2.5 centuries after his death. Neither man would recognize the version of themselves that survives in popular culture today. The katana versus longsword debate that has consumed millions of hours of internet argument. The truth is not as satisfying as the fantasy. The katana was not a magic blade that could cut through anything. European plate armor was not a clumsy iron coffin. The samurai was not a superhuman duelist. The knight was not a slow-witted brute. They were both products of their worlds, ingenious, lethal, and utterly human. The next time you see a katana in a museum, look at the edge. Not the curve, not the hamen, the edge. Count the layers. Imagine the hands that folded that steel. Now imagine those hands against a breastplate forged in Milan. What you are looking at is not a weapon. It is a question that neither warrior ever got to answer, and perhaps that's the point.